video is from Hillsar English Medium School.
Hello student, today we'll start with Standard 8 Science Chapter 4 Materials, Metals and Non-Metals. Here is given the details about the metals and non-metals, their physical and chemical properties of metals as well as non-metals. You are familiar with a number of materials like iron, aluminum, copper. आप सबको पता है राइट. सम ऑफ देम दे आर गिवन इन द टेबल. आपको उसकी जो प्रॉपर्टीज़ है, हार्डनेस है या अपीयरेंस के बारे में आपको लिखना है. आयरन जो है अपीयरेंस कैसा होता है, शाइनी और डल. दे आर शाइनी अपीयरेंस. हार्डनेस दे आर वेरी हार्ड. कोल है जो डल अपीयरेंस है एंड इट इज़ नॉट वेरी हार्ड. सल्फर शाइनी नहीं होता and it is also not very hard. Aluminium and copper both are shiny and they are harder in nature. So from that iron, aluminium, copper जो है shiny है and hard है, they are metals. Whereas sulfur and coal they are dull in appearance and they are not very hard. These are non-metals. Can you name the materials which are metals? The rest of the material in table 4.1 are the non-metal, where the metals can be distinguished from the non-metals on the basis of their physical and chemical properties. Now recall that luster and hardness are the physical properties. आपने पहले भी study किया है in your class 6 and 7 based upon its luster. Luster means shininess and hardness. Physical properties of metals and non-metals. Have you ever seen a blacksmith beating an iron piece or an article made up of iron like spade, shovel, axe? जो blacksmith होता है ना, जो लोहार होता है, वो अपने जो हैमर से गरम गरम लोहे के ऊपर हैमरिंग करता है and they are giving the shape of different materials. Do you find a change in the shape of these articles on heating? जैसे हीट होने के बाद वो सॉफ्ट हो जाता है and then the hammer so their shape changes. Would you expect a similar change if we try to beat a piece of coal? When we beat a piece of coal, it will immediately get break because it is not at all hard. So here in activity 4.1 they have taken a nail iron and aluminium wire, पेंसिल लीड एंड कोल पीस है. तो आपको क्या करना है, उसे हैमर से ब्रेक करना है, हीट करना है एंड हीट हार्डर करना है. तो एल्यूमिनियम वायर व्हाट यू विल सी, रिपीटेड हीट करने के बाद जो वायर है वो चपटी हो जाए. सो सिमिलर malleability ऑफ द मटेरियल. तो malleability it is when we beat the material it will not break but it will form into the sheet. So iron nail when we beat it will become flattened. Coal piece it will break down. Aluminium wire it will flattens. While the pencil lead जो है वो break down हो जाएगी, टूट जाएगी. Because the iron and aluminum are metal, the rest of the are non-metal. So you saw that the piece shape of the iron nail and aluminum wire change on beating. If they were beaten harder, this could be changed into the shape. You might be familiar with the silver foil used for the decorating sweets. सिल्वर फॉइल का कवर होता है ना स्वीट के ऊपर, वो कैसे आया, सिल्वर को जो है ना हैमर से बीट करके उसे शीट बना दी. यू मस्ट हैव आल्सो यूज्ड एल्यूमिनियम फॉइल यूज़ करते हैं रैपर करने के लिए फूड. द प्रॉपर्टी ऑफ द मेटल्स by which they can be beaten into thin sheet we call it as malleability. Malleability means when we beat or heat the sheet material it will beaten form into the sheet, we call it as malleability. This is the characteristics property of metal. मतलब कि ये मेटल की एक कैरेक्टरिस्टिक है. अगर वो malleable है means it is metal. As you must have noticed, material like coal and pencil lead they do not show this property. Why this is? Because they are not metal. Can you hold a hot metallic pan with it without a plastic or a wooden handle? अगर हमने हाथ से पकड़ लिया metallic pan क्या होगा? We may get burn, we may get hurt, perhaps not. Why? Try to list some other experiment in which the wood and the plastic handle protect you from being hurt while handling hot things. क्योंकि वो वुड एंड प्लास्टिक है या फिर अदर किसी चीज़ से बना हुआ हैंडल है तो उसकी वजह से हमारा जो हाथ है उसे चिटका नहीं बैठता. ऑन दिस बेसिस ऑफ दिस एक्सपेरिमेंट what can you say about the conduction of heat by wood and plastic? They are not conducting heat. So you must have seen that electrician they are using the screwdriver स्क्रू ड्राइवर का जो हैंडल होता है, इट इज़ मेड अप ऑफ प्लास्टिक बिकॉज इट इज़ बैड कंडक्टर ऑफ हीट, while the other metals are good conductors of heat. Activity 4.2, recall how to make an electric circuit to test whether electricity can pass through an object or not. अगर एक मटेरियल है उसके थ्रू इलेक्ट्रिसिटी पास हुई तो बल्ब जो है उसे कनेक्ट किया, इट विल लाइट इट अप. इफ़ इट इज़ नॉट पासिंग द इलेक्ट्रिसिटी, इट वोंट लाइट अप, द बल्ब जो है ब्लो होगा नहीं. This activity with the very subject you have done in your earlier class, right? Now repeat the activity with the material which is mentioned in the table. We can do it with the iron rod. उसके लिए क्या लगेगा आपको? एक सेल लगेगा, बल्ब लगेगा एंड वायर लगेगी. एंड दिस मटेरियल, कौन सा भी मटेरियल जो आयरन रॉड्स है या फिर नेल होता है, खिला हो सकता है, वो ले सकते हैं. सल्फर ले सकते हैं, कोल पीस ले सकते हैं, कोयले की पाउडर ले, या कोयले का जो पीस होता है वो ले सकते हैं. कॉपर वायर इजीली अवेलेबल हो जाती है. अगर इफ़ दे आर पासिंग द लाइट एंड बल्ब इज ब्लोन, it is a good conductor of electricity. If it is not, they are the bad conductor of electricity. So iron nails and copper wire, they are good conductor, while sulfur and coal pieces, they are the poor conductor of electricity. So you observe that iron rod, nail and a copper wire, they are good conductors, while rolled sulfur piece and copper piece or the coal piece, they are the poor conductor of electricity. Oh, the meaning of the recalling our experiments and end of this activity was to show that the metals are good conductors of heat and electricity as well as electricity. Well, we have learned that in earlier class. Where do you find the use of aluminum and copper wires? They are in the conducting wires, right? The property of metal by which it can run into the wires. देखो, जो मेटल है, मेटल की क्या प्रॉपर्टी है, उनका हम वायर फॉर्म कर सकते हैं. इट कैन बी ड्रॉन इनटू द वायर. वी कॉल इट एट डक्टिलिटी. व्हाट डू वी कॉल? डक्टिलिटी. हैव यू एवर नोटिस द डिफरेंसेस इन द साउंड ऑन अ ड्रूपिंग और मेटल शीट और प्लेट और द मेटल कॉइन, पीस ऑफ कोल ऑन द फ्लोर? जब वो गिरते हैं तब आवाज़ आती है. दैट इज इट प्रोड्यूसेस sound. Have you seen the wooden bell or in a temple? No, the always bell made up of metals. This thing made the metals produce a ringing sound when struck hard. जब उसके ऊपर कोई जोर से बजाए तो जोर से it is making a sound. Suppose you have two boxes similar in appearance. One made up of wood, other made up of metal. Can you tell which box is made up of metal by shaking both the boxes? अगर दोनों के ऊपर हमने मारा तो पता चलता है. The one box which is making a loud sound, that is made up of metal, other is made up of wood. Since metal they produce a ringing sound, this property we call sonorous. The materials other than the metals are not sonorous. Means all the metals are sonorous, but जो दूसरे materials है वो जो आवाज़ नहीं करते, they are non-metals. After performing the above activities, we can say that some metals, they are hard, lustrous, malleable, ductile, sonorous and good conductors of heat and electricity. So these all are the properties of metal. अगर ये properties है, means that material is made up of metal. So material which is generally possesses these properties, they are called metals. For examples of metals are iron, copper, aluminum, calcium, magnesium. While in contrast, materials like coal and sulfur, they are soft, dull in appearance. They break down when into a powder mass. On tapping with the hammer, अगर हम hammer से उसे मारें तो powder बन जाती है. And they are not at all sonorous, उनकी आवाज़ नहीं आती. And they are poor conductor of heat as well as electricity. So these metals are non-metals. The examples of non-metals are sulfur, carbon, oxygen, phosphorus, etc. So metals like sodium and potassium, they are soft and can be cut into the knife. देखो, they are having some exceptions. They generally metals are hard, but sodium और potassium ऐसे metals है वो knife से cut कर सकते हैं. Mercury ऐसा है, which is at the liquid state at the room temperature. So these are the exceptions of the metal. They are not possessing, they are somewhat different properties than the metals which we are seen in a regular ways. To study the chemical properties of metals and non-metals. अब तक हमने फिजिकल प्रॉपर्टीज़ देखी. नाउ लेट अस डिस्कस अबाउट द केमिकल प्रॉपर्टीज़. वो कैसे केमिकली रिएक्ट करते हैं विथ ऑक्सीजन, वाटर, और दे आर हैविंग एनी चेंज or forming any acid or base litmus test करके हम पता कर सकते हैं.
What is this bridge made of?
The bridge is made of metal.
Why do they use metal for making bridges?
Well, in olden times, people made bridges and buildings with wood. But none of these bridges and buildings lasted long. Structures that are made of metals or use metals to form the skeleton of the structure are strong and durable. That's one of the reasons why metals are used so widely for making almost everything that we see around us. In this lesson, you will learn about metals. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to list the uses of metals, list the physical properties of metals, and list the chemical properties of metals. Metals are used in making machinery, automobiles, aeroplanes, buildings, trains, satellites, gadgets, cooking utensils, water boilers, etc.
Are all metals hard, strong, and durable solids?
No. Sodium and potassium are soft metals that can be cut with a knife. And mercury is a liquid metal.
A liquid metal. Can metals be gaseous too?
No. There are no gaseous metals.
Dad, why are those thick wires carrying electric power made of metal? Is it because the wires need to be very strong?
Yes, those wires need to be strong. But there is a more important reason why those wires are made of metal. You see, metals conduct electricity very well. Non-metals don't. That is the most important reason why wires that carry electricity are always made of metal. Haven't you noticed the wires attached to all electrical and electronic gadgets, such as toasters, television sets and computers?
Speaking of gadgets, why is the base plate of an electric iron made of metal? It is not supposed to conduct electricity.
The metal base in an electric iron is for conducting heat, not electricity. Metals are also very good conductors of heat too. That's why cooking utensils, irons, heaters, etc. are all made of metals. Besides, metals can be easily shaped into wires. This property of metals is called ductility.
Dad, what is that man doing?
He is a blacksmith, and he is hammering the red-hot piece of metal into a flat tool. Metals can be easily shaped into thin flat sheets. This characteristic of metals is called malleability.
Ah, Dad explains this aluminium foil that Mom uses to pack my lunch in. Dad, look at those shiny bells in the temple. Are those made of metal too?
Yes, all metals make a sound when struck with hard objects, and most metals can be polished to a shiny appearance. That's why gold and silver jewelry shine so much.
Dad, how do I distinguish metals from non-metals?
Well, as we just saw, things made of metal typically are sturdy, can be polished to a shiny finish, are good conductors of electricity and heat, can be drawn into wires and beaten into thin sheets, and produce a sonorous sound when struck with hard objects.